As the days have progressed, we have learned more and more about what happened over at Microsoft. There have been a lot of discussions and conversations about what this means for gaming, what this means for Microsoft, and the future of the company. One game we did learn more about is something called Project Blackbird. And that report is coming from Jason Schreier over at Bloomberg. Jason reports that Xbox executives were blown away by an upcoming game, then they canceled it. Now, I kind of wanted to talk about this one for a very specific reason, namely because some of the announcements yesterday kind of make sense. The Perfect Dark one makes like a little bit of sense in that we had been hearing for some time that there were issues with the Perfect Dark game. We saw Video Games Chronicle talk about how insiders were describing fast and furious exits from Xbox's Perfect Dark studio. As much as half of the core development team have quit in the past year. Initiative management says it's confident in its team. Xbox's The Initiative Studio has seen a fast and furious wave of senior departures in the past 12 months. This was reported back in 2022. I remember making videos about this, and the game was going through a lot of issues. And the most damning thing was at the bottom where you could actually see the overall impact of departures and just how many people had come to this studio, felt like it was directionless or not getting where it needed to be, and they decided to leave, and people would leave, people would come on. You know, that sort of churn is normal at a studio, but this one felt different. Interviews with multiple former senior developers cited a lack of creative autonomy and slow development progress as the reason for their departures. As described, the wave of exits is fast and furious, with project momentum said to be heavily affected. So I think there was writing on the wall that there were issues with Perfect Dark. I think it is strange that they would invest all that money to put together a trailer, which we now know is legitimate. It actually is using slices of actual gameplay mixed in with cutscenes and such to demonstrate what they were going for. And honestly, it looked really, really promising, but maybe it was too little too late after years of development turmoil. Now, also talking about Everwild, like I think we're all quite familiar that Everwild also had issues. Report: Everwild restarted from scratch. We're now aiming for 2024. Development now under new leadership. So Submit over at Polygon reported Xbox fans wondering why Rare's Everwild didn't show up at Sunday's E3 showcase now have an answer. The studio has completely rebooted the open world adventure game under a new creative director, and its release is multiple years away, reports VGC. Now, beyond that, Jeff Grubb, a few years later, would also say that it was in development hell. But if there's one game that I reported on a lot, and there was one VOD that I found the other day, it was Project Kestrel. And for the most part, this project seemed quite interesting. Back in the day, I reported that Project Kestrel was from ZeniMax creative director Ben Jones, who's spoken about it publicly. He has interviews, and I have an interview where I looked through that interview, and then I took excerpts from it and I talked about it. It's been in development for 5 to 6 years. 200 people were working on it in 2022, and it's an all-new IP. And we know that it was Quest-related, and now we have more reports from Jason Schreier. So let's dive into what that project actually looked like and was, because here's what he is reporting, actually, in his article. That Xbox executives were blown away, and that it didn't go down smoothly, to put it mildly. On Wednesday morning, employees at the video game maker ZeniMax Online Studio noticed something strange. The executive producer and creative director of their next big game, codenamed Blackbird, no longer had active accounts on their internal chat program, Slack. If you've never used Slack, the way it works is you can see a person's name, and then if their account's deactivated, it says deactivated next to their name. So, you know, something's going down or something weird has happened. if that suddenly happens at your company. And obviously, over the last few days, apparently that has been happening a lot. We saw and discussed the posts from some employees who had talked about coming into work and not knowing if they had employment that day. Schreier continues on further down in the story. A day later, they got an answer. They were in job purgatory. Late last year, the staff had unionized, but they had not yet struck a contract. So Microsoft's lawyers had to negotiate with the union over potential severance packages for anyone who was losing their jobs. In the meantime, they would continue getting their paychecks and remain ZeniMax employees, the union told staff on Thursday. QA staff who had a separate union with an established contract received severance packages as mandated by the agreement. So there was a lot of people talking about the positive impact of unions for this exact reason. But given the fact that the CWA came out today and expressed disappointment for how Microsoft decided to handle this particular project, which, by the way, seemed like it was going quite well, and they were quite close to actually launching something, especially because they played it back in March. During the demonstration in March, Spencer was enjoying the game so much that Matt Booty, the head of Xbox Game Studios, had to pull the controller away so they could keep the meeting going, according to two people who were in the room. Now, Phil Spencer is a big Destiny player, or at least he was at one point. And the fact that Microsoft had something that was able to have quests and missions and a structure similar to Destiny, which Schreier also mentions in his reporting, is incredibly unfortunate to hear. I would have liked to see Xbox take a swing at that kind of game, and I would have liked to see the people who'd worked so hard on it actually see this through to completion. They continue on. Blackbird was a third-person online looter shooter, not unlike the popular game Destiny. Set within a new franchise, it had a sci-fi noir aesthetic similar to films like Blade Runner and placed a heavy emphasis on vertical movement. Players could use abilities such as double jumping, air dashing, a grappling hook, and wall climbing to fling themselves around tall buildings like superheroes. One of my favorite parts of the Halo franchise and the Halo game was actually using the grapple hook to go all over the place on maps and in multiplayer. It's a big reason why I kept playing the game, so I could see something like that, having that 5 seconds of fun that you find yourself playing over and over again. Jason says, I saw footage of the vertical slice last night and was impressed. Please let me see this game. If somebody has a vertical slice, I don't have to talk about it. I don't have to say anything about it. I've been covering this game for like 3 years, not realizing it. Apparently, it was the Project Kestrel I talked about the other day. They just renamed it to Blackbird because Xbox... Oh, hold up. They changed the name in this story that Jason reports because they like Kestrel so much that that's what they wanted to name the game. Xbox executives were also blown away when they played Blackbird in March, according to people familiar with the game's development. Executives had nothing but complimentary words for the project. Now, I can appreciate that the game was canceled. We talked yesterday about Matt Furor, who was the studio boss and director. He immediately tendered his resignation when this happened. And nobody really got a good explanation as to why this particular project was canceled. It's unfortunate. When you look at Perfect Dark was having a lot of development issues. Everwild was having a lot of development issues. But this game is from a studio that's profitable. This is from the team that made Elder Scrolls Online. This is from a very profitable team that makes games that people find themselves getting lost in. And if they were going to make a sci-fi type game with a Destiny vibe, I would argue there's not a lot in the market competing with it. So something was going on that made them pull the plug on this one, and it's a bit unfortunate. Anyway, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please consider hitting that subscribe button, hitting that bell to know when my content goes live. Thank you kindly for doing so. Thank you so much to the members. I do greatly appreciate you supporting Chris Ferretti, Phil Aroni, Spingetter, and Aries EMS. Thank you so much, as well as everybody else who backs. If you want to back, you can click that join button down below to become a YouTube member, or go to patreon.com/SaveStatePlus. I'm going to get out of here, but if you want to see my previous video about the layoffs, you should, because it has even more important info as this story develops. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you for the next one.